You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website, where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, is www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Michael Peter Langevin. He was the publisher, editor for 27 years of Magical Blend magazine. He has authored 3 books, Secrets of the Ancient Incas and Secrets of the Amazon Shamans. Joining me now is Michael Peter Langevin. Michael, welcome to the X-Zone. It's been a long time.
Hey, Rob. It's great to be back.
So you have been busy since you and I last talked a number of years ago.
It's true, Rob. Life has not been boring for me. I've kept my fingers into a lot of pots.
All right. Which pot are you busiest in these days?
Well, right now, I've landed in Virginia after approximately, a little over 3.5 years traveling in Latin America.
What were you doing in Latin America?
Well, you know, I just have this love for Latin America. I early on in my life, I got the bug and I went down there and started dealing with meeting and doing research with and dancing with a number of Amazon shamans and shamans all over the Yucatan and the Inca Mountains.
My gosh, I'm just reading some of the information that your wife sent us. He has lived and traveled extensively in Latin America. He has danced with shamans in the Andean Mountains and Amazon jungle. He leads workshops in reclaiming rituals and ceremonies to enhance your life. My gosh.
That'd be right, Rob.
My gosh. So tell me, do you miss publishing Magical Blend?
You know, I'd lie if I didn't say part of me misses it. There's a real fun in the publishing industry and a real fun, as you know, and a real fun in gathering information and putting together a creative project every month.
Yeah.
But another part of me feels really free to do my own thing and to get out there and touch people on a one-on-one basis and spend time doing research and traveling.
Your book, The Secrets of the Amazon Shamans, is being released in January. Why?
It's being re-released because it's been sold out for a couple of years, and it's only available. I think there's only a couple copies left on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people really liked it, and it's a fun book that really touched a lot of people's lives, and I want to get it out to the public.
Do you know shamanism is a big topic these days?
Yeah, I really had to make peace with that because I started going down to Peru in 40 years ago almost. And then it wasn't that well known, but I really feel good about it now that I've made peace with it, that people have an understanding and they're bringing these concepts into everyday society. It's pretty wonderful.
So what does your book, Secrets of the Amazon Shaman, deal with?
Well, it deals with a number of years back when my children were young. Both of my children are adopted from Peru, and they're now 26 and 27. And them and my ex-wife and I went down to Latin America a number of times. And this time, with the help of an aunt, we traveled to most of the countries that touch the Amazon jungle. And I got to meet a number of isolated shamans, and we got to experience just magic in its rawest form.
What kind of magic did you experience, my friend? You've got me sitting on the edge of my seat here.
Thank you, Rob. Well, when you go to third world countries, and especially Latin America, the magic is real. It's not like it is in the United States and Europe. It's a real thing. People expect magic to be the way of life. The book 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Marquez speaks of a kind of surreal magic, and that's true down there. Because I had been down there before, I was sort of handed off from shaman to shaman in different countries. Or told, go to this village or go down this river and take the third fork, and you'll meet this fellow and tell him I sent you. Some of my favorite stories, and there's quite a few of them, and a lot of them are in the book, but not all of them. I was in northern Bolivia and sat in this hut, rather begging this fellow to give me some of his shamanic secrets or show me some stuff. And after a day of trying to wear him down, a poor fisherman came in and was sick. And the shaman said, all right, if I can use your energy, I'll show you some stuff. And he touched my forehead and he touched the man's forehead. And I was all of a sudden looking out of his eyes. And I had memories and knowledge of his life.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I saw him looking at me through my eyes. He was trying desperately to figure out what my life was about, and I could feel his love of his family, his village, of the river. And after a little bit, the shaman touched both of our foreheads, and I was back in my body, and the two of us were crying, and we hugged each other, and the shaman said, okay, you can go now, gringo. But that's just a touch of some of the magic that happens down there. Things that we don't think are possible.
Things that we don't think are possible, but this is not uncommon for those people down there. And here they are. They're in the jungles. They're in the forests. And we, in what many people call civilization, and I'm still trying to figure out why we're called civilized.
To fool ourselves.
Yeah, to fool ourselves. How did you adapt to their way of living down there with you and your family? And was it hard for you to come back here and get into this lifestyle again?
Every time I spend time, I think I've only been in Virginia for a little over a year, and coming back to the United States after being in the Yucatan for a year was really challenging. Before that, I was using Peru as a base and traveling all around Latin America. And every time I come back, I'm struck by the contrast. In Latin America, usually if somebody asks you how you're doing, they stop and they listen and they expect you to tell them. And if you ask them how they're doing, it's the same thing. Where here, people are worried about what their clothes are and if they're going to be late for work and if their house looks as good as the next door neighbor's a lot of the time. And those cultural changes are just so challenging for me.
People up here are too busy looking at their little handheld devices. Instead of,
and I love technology.
So
I have really learned since you and I last talked. I've immersed myself in technology and the internet, and just really learned a lot of different tricks with it to get the information that's exciting to me out to the world better. But to make it to be its servant rather than have it serve you is just. I don't think it's right.
I think the last time you and I talked, you were printing on paper and I was printing on paper. But now I do everything digital. Number one, the cost is down. Number two, I can blow it up in full high definition color. I can add video. I can add audio clips. I can embed whatever I want. And you know what?
That's it. I mean, the freedom of technology is like magic if we use it wisely.
We use it wisely.
And not become enslaved by it.
Like, I went to a restaurant the other night with my wife. And we're sitting there talking, and she looked at me with a strange look on her face. I said, honey, is there something wrong with your food? She said, look around, Robbie. And I'm looking around.
Everybody was looking at their cell phones.
That's right. Like, there was a family of 6 at the next table. They weren't talking; they were texting.
Yeah,
like
it kind of breaks my heart. Yeah. I really, my children and I are very close. We're great friends, and they both live in California, and both of them came out here over the summer to spend some time. And being in their 20s, they use technology quite a bit. But because we hadn't been together for a while, both of them, when they were here, put aside their technology and almost didn't stop talking and having conversation with me for the whole time. That's the way relationships in life should be, as far as I'm concerned.
How were you accepted by the indigenous people when you were on your quest?
It's a wide range of accepted and not accepted. A lot of times, there's a saying among the shamans in Latin America that you don't tell the gringos everything. You tell them part of the story, and if they're smart enough, they'll fill in the missing blanks. So that was part of it. But in general, the shamans have a telepath. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them have a telepathic knowing, and if they sense a sincere heart and a good intent, they're more than willing to give you an experience, or share a story, or show you some of their magic that is extremely powerful, and extremely mind-boggling.
What is the most amazing or mind-boggling experience you had with these wonderful people?
Oh gosh, let's see. Let's. My kids were sick in the jungle. And I was concerned because we were far away from anything. The resident shaman really hadn't been too friendly. We had a boat coming back in a little over a week. I was concerned about where the sickness was going to go. We went to the shaman, and he made us lick a toad. We didn't have a lot of choices, and I had been around a lot of shamans and thought, well, if he says this is right, we've got to take a chance. We followed him for a hike through the jungle, and first he and then we all started changing shapes. I swear to this day, I don't know, I'm sure there was a hallucinogenic in the toad, but still, to see your loved ones change shapes in front of your eyes and to feel yourself and feel your body differently like a jaguar or a parrot, it's just it's beyond description, and it's reference points that you have for the rest of your existence. And after we came back, we were all fine and healthy again. Miracles keep happening.
I was speaking to a Canadian film producer a couple of weeks ago who went down to the Amazon and did a documentary on shamans and the use of ayahuasca.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the shamans in the Andes Mountains and in the Amazon jungle use a wide array of substances to in their rituals. It's become, it was there long before the Spanish came, and it's still there. To use substances in a sacred fashion, not as recreational drugs, and to use them in a holy way, in a spiritual way, I think is a wonderful thing, and I've shared many experiences with it. One of my favorites, and I've done ayahuasca. Let's first tell the ayahuasca story, and then I'll tell you another one if
Sure.
even better. But
please.
One of the first times I did ayahuasca, I held out my hand towards the jungle, and I couldn't tell where I stopped and the jungle began. And it wasn't until about a week after the experience I realized I had been thinking of myself as an individual all this time, and I hadn't seen my connectedness to nature and to growing forest and jungle. What a wonderful gift that substance gave me that day. Another time, we went to a village. I believe it was in southern Venezuela, and the tribal tradition was that if a male came there of age, he had to take this pipe and have the substance blown up his nose. There wasn't a lot of choice. We were there, and I was the male of age,
right?
So I had them blow it up my nose. And the first time I did it, I fell back, and the top of my head really felt explosive. Then 2 more times, and the third time, the top of my head came off, and little people danced around me and sang a song I had never heard that was the most beautiful song I ever heard in my life. And the next day when I came back to consciousness, the shaman told me that was my life song that I should hear, and that it would change my life. And for years afterwards, when things got really intense, these little men would come out, little beings would come out and dance around me and sing this song and enhance my experience.
Who were these little beings? Where did they come from? Where do they live? What do they do?
Well, Rob, as you've spent a lot of time in magical ceremony and ritual, and especially in places like the Andes and the Amazon, you know that there's a plethora of extra-dimensional and spiritual beings that are just on the edge of our perception. But mainstream media tells us they don't exist and they're fairy tales. And if with a little practice, especially sharing in ritual ceremony, you can actually get in contact with and on a good night see beings of all sorts that exist, that in the Western world we think they're just our imagination. And
these are interdimensional entities?
I believe so. I believe they're interdimensional beings that live just on the edge of our consciousness, that are there to help us in their unique way, and they vary from region to region. And that is their way of coming through to people when they have this combination of root and bark blown up their nose. All of a sudden, there's a doorway open, and they can come through and give gifts, sort of like the elves of Ireland in myth and legend.
Fascinating. So, how did how was your family with all of this change in culture?
Well, my ex-wife was a good sport about it. My children sometimes just loved going down the river, seeing toucans, playing with monkeys. Other times they were happy as heck when we could get to a big city and stay in a nice hotel and they could have a McDonald's hamburger. So it was an intensive 3.5 month experience that they'll never forget.
So what do you want readers to get out of your book?
Well, Rob, the thing we started with about that magic really exists in the world, I think it's really important. It's not just Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings cartoons and books, but that our lives can be as magical as we allow them. Even in the United States, Canada, Europe, we get in our own way. We accept limitations because of our early childhood training, because of the multimedia and what it tells us, because people will laugh at us. But if people can get out of their own way and suspend their judgment, they can bring magic into their life in all kinds of amazing ways and live the life of their dreams rather than feel enslaved and trapped by their day-to-day job and not paying the bills.
So, Michael, in your opinion, what are the most important aspects of your book?
Oh, I think it's letting people know that in Latin America there's a real magic, that in each of us there's a willingness to risk and have adventure, and that if we push our comfort zone and push our usual way of doing things, that we can just so enrich our lives and fulfill our dreams in ways that almost are only limited by our imagination.
When you think of movies like Harry Potter, Peter Pan, and some of the other movies as children, we feel as if there's a connection that we have, a natural connection, and as we grow older, we're told it's just fantasy. I can only imagine the wonderment that we would have throughout our lives if we could keep that door to those years open.
Well, that's it. And that's why I've taken the teaching workshops in ritual and ceremony, and because a lot of people see ritual and ceremony as religious tools, and maybe something we do at Christmas. But if people can see that they can make their lives magical by how their intention is focused when they wash their dishes, I once watched a Zen Buddhist monk in Oakland, California, wash his car, and it was one of the most spiritual experiences I had, because his total essence was focused on this ritual of washing his car. We can do that with the way we drive to work, with the way we interact with friends, with everything about our lives, and we can make it a real focus thing. My wife Sophia and I, a couple of nights a week, set aside time with no media, and we just sit and do ritual together to focus our lives and bring more and more magic into it. Anyone can do that with just a little bit of trust and research and training, and they don't even need the training. They can do it on their own. The books and the internet sites are beyond number.
You know, just imagine what the world would be like, my friend, if we treated every day like Christmas Day. Can you just imagine the magic of Christmas 365 days of the year?
I can, Rob. You know, my life has been pretty blessed, and I sure I have ups and downs like everybody else and setbacks, but in general, when you've stood in the Amazon jungle and seen the blue butterflies in the old growth canopy in the morning, and then at night seeing the shiny eyes of the Cayman alligators on the river, you know a sense of wonderment and limitlessness that you can bring to everything you do, and people really have that if they just don't take the brainwashing of mainstream media and undo the damage of their youth.
But how do you get away from the influence of mainstream media when in today's society it's a necessity?
Well, and it's, again, it's attitude and approach and baby steps. I started by turning off the TV one night a week.
Okay.
Now we don't even own a TV.
Wow.
I go on the internet and use Facebook and some of the work I do,
Right.
but I make sure that I am making the decisions. It's not an addiction, and it's not something that controls me. People, if they just set aside 3 hours a week where they're going to detach from all media and use that in some spiritual practice, whether it's writing, dancing, doing artwork, doing ceremony, bringing magic in, and then that their goal is to increase that, and that they'll use this time to increase their willpower to break free of their brainwashing. We all have the ability. It's a matter of setting our intent and believing that we can do it.
Michael, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour, but I must say, my friend, it is so good talking to you after all these years. And
isn't it fun, Rob? Oh, how good. I was so glad we reconnected.
Me too.
It really is nice.
Michael, please stand by. Exonation. Michael Peter Langevin has a BA in political science and a master's degree in social work and family therapy. His present-day company, LANGEVIN Marketing, specializes in social media marketing and public relations consulting. I love their logo, Exonation. Let us help the world know you better. It says it right there. To contact Michael, his email address is langevinmarketing@gmail.com, and Langevin is spelled Langevin, marketing@gmail.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. This is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Digital Satellite Network, and Digital Broadcast Network. Later on tonight, we have a repeat of the last debate between Michael Horn and Stanton Friedman. That's in hour number 3 and hour number 4, because you, the members of the Exo Nation, asked us to replay it for you, and so did a number of our broadcast affiliates. So there you go. It's a win-win situation. Once again, Michael Peter Langevin is my guest. His email address is langevinmarketing@gmail.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break with Michael as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and science of parapsychology here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at XZoneRadioTV.com.
There's a revive in the thing. It's a little tricky because I keep thinking it's
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
The Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. First of all, let's start off by getting the following understood. I am not a psychic, medium, channel, intuitive, soothsayer, nor the practitioner of any art of divination. I am a Canadian, a broadcaster, a journalist, a publisher, and a realist. I tried warning people about the refugee problem with on-air commentaries and videos that I had produced, but no one listened. I was called a racist and every name under the sun. Well, look what happened in Paris on Friday. Friday the 13th, 2015. The X Zone was the first media outlet to openly make the Friday 13th connection, and was the first media outlet to broadcast the fact that ISIS had claimed responsibility for the terror in the attacks on Paris. This is war. I hate to say it, but it is going to get worse before it gets better. My heart and prayers are with those who have lost family, friends, and countrymen and women in this war that ISIS has openly declared, again, against the Western world. The time for talking is over. We must support France and other free countries against Islam. We must close our borders to Syrian refugees. Again, we need to give refugees a safe zone in Syria by a military coalition where they can live and be protected and supported by the United Nations until the time comes when ISIS and their supporters and sympathizers have been wiped off the face of this earth, at which time the refugees from Syria can return to their homeland. The military and intelligence services must be given all the resources they need to fight this fight. It is time we stopped turning the other cheek and started fighting fire with fire. This is no time to be over-politically correct. For the X Zone radio and TV show and the X Chronicles newspaper, I am Rob McConnell. Welcome back, everyone. Michael Peter Langevin is our special guest this hour. His email address is langevinmarketing@gmail.com. Peter, I hear you disagree with my commentary and op-ed on ISIS.
I surely do, Rob. I respect you strongly for taking a strong stand. And I understand in the world today that's a kind of populist stand. Mm-hmm. But I just don't feel that war is ever the way, hate is ever the way, fear is ever the way. Mm-hmm. And even though I respect the hell out of you, Rob, that really is what just jumps out at me from that ad that you just aired before we came back.
Well, that's
that
first.
We're talking about the fear. We've already given up if we block the refugees, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, first of all, it's not an ad. It's a commentary.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. That's how millions of people feel.
Probably more people than not.
Yeah.
I don't claim to be in the majority, and that's okay.
And I respect you for that, Peter, because it takes, there's so many sides to a story. And you know what? I want to hear your side, my friend.
Well, Rob, I don't know in history. I mean, sure, maybe World War II, maybe. Mm-hmm. Although there's a lot more gray to that story in history than we talk about usually. But I don't know in history too many times where violence and being the aggressor has worked out to the advantage of anyone involved. It wasn't all of ISIS that attacked in Paris. It was a handful of radicals. There are many, many refugees who live in France who are great citizens, the majority of them by far. What's happening in Syria is such a multi-leveled can of worms, with Israel backing the Kurds and Russia and Iraq and Iran backing the Sunnis, and us coming in with a coalition to back different rebels. There's no black and white, and ISIS has been used to be a convenient target, or to make it black and white for people, so that they could rally their war cry and make a lot of money for people who make military supplies.
So, how do you suggest how do you believe that this terror group and all the terror that they've caused around the world over the years, and in fact, we are putting together a list of Islamic terror attacks that is just going to shock the hell out of people when they realize, this is. So how would you suggest that the world take this war on, or this disagreement, this battle, whatever it should be called?
I say we isolate it. I say we I mean, after 9/11, there's been almost no incidences in the United States. We have the ability to limit the damage greatly, but to amp it up, send young, innocent people to Syria when the United States and Canada already have 2 wars going on that we know of and speak of in the public, is just going to make more money for the people who make airplanes and bombs and guns and uniforms. It's not going to solve the situation. We sure haven't solved anything in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, and how much money and lives have been lost there.
Okay, but what about the marathon bomber attack, the whatchamacallit, the army colonel who went a little nutso and started killing soldiers, for goodness sake.
All right, you're right.
We're talking.
There have been situations,
and we're talking about Islam here. We're talking about
sure.
Those who believe in the undeniable and all-knowing word of Allah in the Quran.
However, we're talking about a whole array of belief systems and depth of beliefs and a small fringe of radicals.
Small.
Sure, the radicals and I believe our governments and especially the military have blown up every incident and made sure that everybody lives in fear. But if we live in fear, we give away our power and we don't take on our full possibilities of life. We're too busy hating, and we're hating all of these innocent people who, there are so many. I've traveled in Morocco. I've traveled in Turkey. The people there are Islamic, and they're wonderful. They're loving. They're caring. We can't hate them all just because they have a different religious belief than us, and some of them are radical and out to kill.
But it's their religion says that they are to eradicate anyone who is not a Muslim.
However, the Catholic religion says that abortion is wrong.
I've never heard. Well, okay.
Wrong.
Well, wait a minute. We're not talking about birth control here, my friend. We're talking about the eradication of men, women, and children if they're not Muslims.
My point, Rob, is that they don't. The majority of them do not endorse every aspect of it. Even among themselves, the different groups are divided about how they interpret the Quran and how they interpret the word of Muhammad.
So if that is the case, Michael, why then are certain areas of London and other areas where the Muslim communities are gaining strength, wanting to enforce, and in certain places enforcing Sharia law, which is not the law of the country that they have decided to take residence of? Why are they doing that? Why are they flexing their muscles?
The same reason the Irish took over Boston. Because if you have the majority of the population and you have a way of life and you reinforce each other, then you tend to bring that in to whatever degree the system allows, and you can.
Is that right, or is it wrong?
Well, Rob, I was born and raised in the United States, and I believe it's wrong. I don't agree in changing a country's culture fully because yours is different. Yeah. And I don't believe in Sharia law as a way of life. I'll go that far, sure. I'll give you those points gladly.
You know, I like saying Merry Christmas. I like the way that I went to school and what I was taught, how I was taught. I don't think that any person coming into Canada or the United States has the right to dictate to the government, whether it's municipal, state, or federal, on what should be taught in schools and what shouldn't be taught in schools. My attitude is, hey, you don't like it here where your plane landed, it'll take off too. But wait a minute, you don't want to go back to the desert. No, you enjoy what we have over here.
Oh, you're a very intelligent man, Rob, and I agree with that part of it. But does that justify wiping out all of the people who disagree with us in Syria? Does that justify taking money that could be helping people in Canada and the United States, improving our school system, improving our infrastructure, improving a wide array of social services? and putting all that money into down a black hole like we have in Afghanistan and Iran, Iraq.
But you know what, Peter? Michael, I don't know why I want to call you Peter. It's because it's your middle
That's
name.
right. A lot of people do. That's why I use both names, Michael, Peter.
All right. Michael, when you look at the picture, our Prime Minister, who is still wet behind the ears for a 43-year-old who just won his first political campaign as the Prime Minister of Canada, is allowing 25,000 Syrian refugees into Canada. I say before you allow any refugees or any more immigrants into Canada, take care of the people that are here. The members of the First Nation are being neglected. You've got people who sleep on the streets, people who are homeless, people who are hungry. Take care of those people first before we go spending money.
Well, Canada and the United States took the money that they put into war, that we put into building airplanes and bombs and guns and tanks, and we took that money back into our government. That's the majority of our budgets. If you took that money back, you could not only help the homeless in the streets, you could have a supportive society, and you could bring in the refugees as well, and you can make it safe and screen them in a healthy way and keep an eye on what's going on.
Instead of bringing the refugees to Canada, the United States, and putting them throughout Europe, why not get a military force to give them a safe haven near Syria? That once ISIS is eradicated and the problems in Syria are solved, then allow them to go back home. Like that's not brain surgery.
Because ISIS isn't going to be eradicated, Rob, and Syria isn't going to be a place of peace in the near future.
But it's
a hot pot with a number of international interests throwing in tons of money to make sure that it's stirred up and to make sure that things stay messy.
But is it the responsibility of the rest of the world to take care of these people just because their government is screwed up?
We have a responsibility to every person that lives on the planet, Rob. I believe that the United States has taken really good care of me, but I also believe that when I go out of my way for people in Peru or Mexico or Africa, that I've made the world a better place.
Oh, I agree with you on that point, Michael. I agree with you. But I'm looking at 25,000 people coming to Canada. We already have an immigration quota of 250,000. These people are going to be a strain on our medical system, on our social system, and on the system level.
Once again, you're an intelligent man. If you do your research about what most refugees who come into a country actually do, that's propaganda that you're speaking.
No, this is facts.
And I've lived in the Latino ghettos and the black ghettos. Most of them that come from another country are so glad to have an opportunity that they work 2 and 3 jobs. They pay their taxes and they contribute to society. They actually usually work harder than the citizens from the country originally and contribute more.
I don't agree with you.
You don't have to.
I don't agree with you. if you want to come to Canada, number one, get rid of the burqas. Don't tell me what I can do and what I can't do just because you have this different religion than I have, and because I put on the side of a hill Merry Christmas. It's offensive to your religion, so we have to change it to Season's Greetings. They have caused a problem within the community themselves.
And they, again, and it's a part of it is the community divided, but the difference between getting rid of the burqas and not writing Merry Christmas on the wall, which I'm fine with people wearing burqas or not, but I don't think it has to be a requirement. And I don't want to limit your rights in any way. I don't have to, but that's real different than pouring money in people's lives into a war that's a black hole and a dead end, Rob. And bringing in refugees, if we say no to all the refugees, ISIS has already won because we're living so in fear and so in isolation that we've given them their victory.
Well, let's take another look at the immigration crisis. In the United States, there are 11 million illegal immigrants right now. You've got the people of the United States, the majority, who are really fed up, because these illegal immigrants are taxing the hell out of the social system in the States. We have the same problem up here. The
Rob,
world.
Georgia
Wait a sec. When
they really cracked down and got rid of all of the immigrants, they had no one to work the fields. The crops rotted in the fields. There's a role that the immigrants are playing in our society.
Fine, then let them come in and be legal. It's that simple. Take the proper steps, take the proper procedures, do what needs to be done, do it the right way.
Rob, my wife is from Sweden.
Okay.
We met in Peru 3 years ago.
Right.
She came to live with me in Virginia, and we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the hell the U.S. immigration has put her and I through to allow her to stay in this country?
Did you do it the right way?
We both have master's degrees.
Okay.
We've filed the papers immediately. We've dotted every I, crossed every T. They're torturing us.
Why?
Just to make it for her to be legal to stay in this country as my wife.
Why are they?
Now,
why are they putting you through so much? Why are they turning the screws?
Don't have our training.
So why are they targeting your wife? Why are they causing all this problem?
Because they're a bureaucracy, and when large bureaucracies exist, they perpetuate petty rules, and they don't pay attention to what they're doing, and they just, you've seen it with the post office. They just eat people up and spit them out.
So let me ask you this. If your wife would have had no problems gaining acceptance and entranceship into the United States, would you be carrying the grudge axe against the immigration policies as heavy as you are right now?
Yes, I would, because I had it before I even met her.
Why?
I saw, in Northern California, I did therapy, and I saw a number of Mexican people who were born in the United States, but because their parents had come here illegally, they were illegally, and they lived in fear every day of their life, even though they had a job and a family in the United States and were better citizens than a lot of people I knew that were born and raised here.
But is that the problem of the everyday, hardworking, legally immigrated American? If these people are breaking the law, they're breaking the law. If they have to be shipped out to gain entrance in a legal way, what's wrong with that?
If the system doesn't work, then how can you defend it, Rob? You're smarter than that.
I'm dead against it, to be honest with you. Illegal immigration,
that's fine.
You know.
I like I said at the beginning, I respect your strong stance and your belief.
Yeah.
I always have since we first met. And this one, when I heard the ad the other night when I was listening to your program, I was
commentary.
like, yeah, Rob and I fall on the other side of it's not an ad, it's a
commentary.
It's a political statement, a commentary, and I respect that. But when I heard that, I was like, Rob and I fall on the other side of our belief systems on this one very strongly.
You see, I'm former law enforcement. I'm a former cop.
Right.
The law is the law. If people ignore the law, society does not work. There's a right way of doing it. There's a wrong way of doing it. And if the policy and procedure of immigration is to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and if you think you could go from A to Z to M to Q, it's not going to work. And if you're in Canada illegally, I want you out. I don't care if you have 16 kids. I want you out. Go back onto the other side of the border.
You really don't care if they have 16 kids.
No, I don't.
You really don't care
if
these kids. I lived in Tijuana, Mexico for a while, and there's no jobs. And if you can get a job, it pays maybe $5 a day. If I was born and raised and educated in the United States, and you ship me back at any point in that, and I have to live in this culture, a lot of the illegal immigrant children don't even speak Spanish.
Peter,
how can you talk about that as if it was black and white, just because the law is more important than these individuals suffering?
Without the law, there is no society. We've seen this. We've seen this throughout history. And if we do not respect the laws that have been voted upon by the people, for the people.
Okay, let me tell you how they enforce the law in Northern California. When they stop an illegal immigrant driving in Northern California,
right.
If that person has an insurance policy, they let him go. Because the system just says that they're not doing any trouble and they're obeying the law to that degree, and they let them go. What if they sent everyone they stopped that doesn't have legal papers? At that point, they would just depopulate Northern California and Southern California.
So what's wrong with that? That does not give the people the right to come into the country illegally and prosper.
I'm not saying it gives them. I'm talking about the individuals that are born and raised here, but their parents came in illegally. They didn't have any choice in the matter. And I'll tell you the truth, and you can say that I don't respect your laws, but if I were born in Tijuana, Mexico, and if I had children in Tijuana, if I lived in Tijuana, and I couldn't get the I-files to come in the States legally, and I couldn't get approved, I would think very, very quickly about coming in any way I could. The difference between making $5 a day and making $25 an hour is pretty radical.
Listen, you and I have both worked very hard to get where we are today.
We sure have,
okay.
and I'm proud of it.
I work 7 days a week. My day starts at 7 a.m. and it usually ends up at 3 a.m. Okay? I'm not afraid of hard work. Hey, there were times when I worked in the fields. There's times when I've done a lot of strange and mysterious jobs. But I did what I had to do. But I made sure what I did was legal. I could have gone to the other side of the street and made a hell of a lot of money very fast. But I didn't. So what is wrong with these people who think that they can just come into the country illegally?
Let me tell you a personal story.
Okay.
I went down to Peru during their civil war to adopt my children.
Right.
It was supposed to take 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It ended up taking 6 months.
Wow.
There was a civil war. It was chaos. They blew up the American embassy. They blew up the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Lima while we were there.
Oh, wait a sec. I don't mind. I don't care if you blow up the embassy, but blowing up a KFC now,
I know,
that
was
is...
the signal.
Oh, yeah.
We agree on that one.
Yeah.
but the courts would not approve the adoption. I had these children living with me from the day I got there, and the courts would not approve the adoption. I went down to the docks, Rob, and I'm proud of it.
Sure.
And I talked to sea captains about would they smuggle me and these children back to the United States, because they had become my children. I had raised them for 6 months and shared it with them. I wasn't leaving them in a civil war country. Then, as soon as I did that, the blessed fate, the courts opened up and approved it. We came up here, but I was at that point, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. I was ready to break the law to bring these children back and keep them in my life and give them a good life in the States, which I succeeded in doing.
Why wouldn't you adopt 2 children from the United States?
I tried to, Rob. They wouldn't.
Really?
The procedure was going to take 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
Versus 6 months at that point in time. This was
Unreal.
24 years ago.
Hey, I admire you for that. I really do. I admire you for a lot of things, Michael.
Thank you, Rob. I have to hold you in the same regard.
I really do, my
it's
friend.
Great to have a debate on issues
Yeah.
we don't agree on.
But, you know, it all comes down to, I just don't think it's right. It doesn't sit right with me. Maybe if I wouldn't have had the experience of enforcing the law or you know, standing up for people who society have sat on and abused, and when I, you know, walking the beat with homeless people at your feet, seeing hungry people, seeing them, you know, without proper clothes on their backs, knowing that the shelters don't have enough room and space. And when you hear the government, because the government does everything for votes or gratification of one system or another, talking about bringing in 25,000 people to a system that is already stressed.
There we agree. There we agree. The system is already stressed. The system isn't working. The system isn't serving its people. Yeah. And why? Because in the United States we no longer tax the rich.
Yeah.
And where does all our money go? To building war machines.
Yeah.
To go forward and fight now a third war.
But
why do we need to be fighting international wars of this nature when we can't take care of our people, never mind the refugees? But does that mean we should live in fear and hate and make the refugees suffer? We disagree on that point.
Well, okay. The refugees are suffering because of their inability, and they have to take some responsibility here, because they allowed the government in the country that they're running from to get away with what they did. Because they're not proactive. They're not. They could have made changes within their government if they really wanted to.
Well, why did you let your prime minister get elected, Rob? You don't seem to back him.
I don't. I didn't vote for him. But the majority of
but he's still there.
But that's because
take the responsibility?
That's because the majority of Canadians voted for him. Okay? The democratic legal procedure was followed. Now, when you look at...
We could do ours on the Syrian system and how Bashar came to power and how we helped set that up because it was a minority that was looked down upon, and all of his people are in power there, and they're not a religious group that has power in other countries, and how there isn't a democratic vote, and how none of the people had a say because it was basically a fascist regime.
If people want change, they can make it happen.
Then
really
people
can.
in Canada should make a change to get the government to start putting their money towards the homeless people and towards improving the system and towards taking care of their citizens.
I agree.
It works both
I agree.
ways,
We're doing that. We're doing that the democratic way, the legal way. We have organizations, we have lobbyists, and it'll take time. But until it is taken care of, until the problems are solved here in Canada, I don't want any more immigrants. I don't want any more refugees. But unfortunately, the majority of Canada does.
That's a choice that people have, Rob,
yeah.
that they can tell their governments no. But I feel strongly that we're one world and one people. And every time we turn our back on people in need, we make ourselves lesser beings and we make the world a darker place.
I disagree. What I'm saying, and we've got to go because I'm way over time here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
It's been fun to
no problem. But the war machine is necessary in today's society. We need a strong military, because you look at a country like China, you look at a country like North Korea, you look at the countries that are building up their military, including Russia. We need to be prepared. It's that old adage of who's going to blink first. And if anything, the terrorist crisis in Europe I believe, is bringing the countries together that will, and you mark my words, I'm not a psychic, but ISIS will be eradicated. It'll be wiped off the face of the earth, and stronger immigration rules are going to come into play. I can see a number of the countries who have open door policies closing them. It's a different world, and I too would love to bring a guitar to the lake shore, start a bonfire, get some marshmallows, hold hands with the world, and sing Kumbaya.
And sing Kumbaya, yes.
But it's not going to happen right now.
Well, I'm not a prophet either. I can't say, but I can say that we each have a choice. If we live our lives out of fear and hate and anger and revenge, or we live our life out of caring and willing to extend ourselves and take risks for the good of the planet and other people. And, you know, Rob, I'd rather die than give up my core values that we just spoke of.
Well, I'd rather keep my family alive. That's my priority, is keeping my family safe and sound, keeping my country safe and sound, because if I do that, then I have done my job as a human being and as a Canadian. That's where my priorities lie.
Rob, I respect you.
All right, my good friend. Hey, we'll have to do this again, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Craig. I got the hint. Michael Peter Langevin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you and connecting with you again. The best of luck. And Exonation, if you'd like to contact Michael, his website is langevinmarketing.com. Well, on the other side of the news, when we come back, I will be replaying the Stanton Friedman-Michael Horn debate that we had on November the 10th, because you, the members of the Exo Nation, asked for it, and so did our affiliates. This is the X-Zone, and whether you agree with me or disagree with me, send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Should the refugees be allowed in your country? Send me an email saying, hi, my name is such and such. I live in such a country. And Rob, I agree with you or I disagree with you. It's that simple. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.